So this is weird because it's a movie that I got requested to watch and review countless times. But the thing is, I actually wanted to see this movie when it was in cinemas, but my local cinema just didn't pick it up. And the only theater that was showing Free Fire was hours away from me, and at that time, I didn't have the time or dedication to put into going, out of my way to go see it. So when the film came out digitally and available worldwide on like iTunes and stuff, I was really fired up about watching it, and so I did. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie and getting really excited for it. I thought it looked really awesome, and seeing that Martin Scorsese produced it is just... I want to see it. And I remember watching the trailer and going, hey, that looks like really cool and something that I want to see, and then it just kind of faded into memory and I didn't really care about it that much anymore. Which is a shame, because after watching the movie, there's a lot to talk about, so let's talk about it. What's up guys, I'm Jacob Suggs and welcome back to another video. In fact, welcome back to another episode of Totally Worth Watching, the show where I give you a reason why a show or a movie is well worth your time. And typically this goes for movies that I personally consider or the masses consider to be underrated or overlooked, and Free Fire definitely falls in that category. I also forgot to mention this movie is produced by A24. If you don't know who this studio is, you probably should, because A24 is probably one of my favorite studios today when it comes to producing films. Literally, I've liked almost everything they've put out, so it just made me even more excited to find out that Free Fire was an A24 film. And right off the bat, when I started to watch the film, it had a really intriguing and captivating premise. After two people who had a previous disagreement meet up unexpectedly at an arms deal, this massive Free Fire, see what I did there? This massive firefight breaks out between the people wanting to buy the arms and sell the arms, and they're trying to solve this disagreement in a reasonable way through less than reasonable means. And something you need to know about me, I have a thing for movies that take place in one condensed location. I just love those kinds of films. This whole movie takes place in this massive warehouse with rubble everywhere that eventually only exists for cover whenever the firefight breaks out later on. And I love movies like that, like 10 Cloverfield Lane, Cloverfield, movies that are really small and condensed and tell a big story in a small way. That stuff's just right up my alley when it comes to movies. So it's no surprise to me that I was immediately hooked by the really creative premise to this film, the characters, which we'll get into in a second, and just this massive action scene that is this movie. And it's super weird because this movie actually has a lot of clever, twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. So I had to pull myself back for a minute and say, wait a minute, did that actually just happen? And whenever a movie does that, it makes me jump and go, holy crap, that actually happened. That's not a negative, that's actually one of the most positive things I can say about a movie. Because it shows that I'm invested in the film and care about the characters for the most part, and the plot and what's going on. So whenever something like that happens in a film, it's actually pretty awesome for me. Now this film is incredibly violent. I don't think I have to tell you that because one, the film's rated R, and two, the movie's called Free Fire. The film is incredibly violent, but the action in this movie, which is entertaining, is really well shot. Whenever a bullet hits somebody, it's pretty gruesome and pulls you back because every gunshot in this film seems to mean something. Whenever somebody opens fire on somebody else in the movie, it's for a specific reason, and I really like that and appreciated that. Ultimately, when you sit down and ponder about it, this film is basically an argument between two people and a disagreement between two people taken to extreme drastic measures. And that's what makes this film great. It's entirely pointless, but it feels real and it feels grounded. Especially when it comes to adding in the 1970s aesthetic to this movie, which I felt added a lot to both the themes of this film and the plot to this movie. To me personally, it just kind of added more of a gritty tone to this movie and to the characters and to their actions that they take in the movie. So it just really fit well with this film and with the characters in the movie. Speaking of which, I love the characters so much in this movie. Every character in this movie is not morally straight. They all are kind of immoral in their own weird way. And really, the person that we're rooting for might just be the villain. There's no good people in this movie. They might have good aspects to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person. And in a movie where the location doesn't change whatsoever, it's really crucial and important in a movie like this that we care about the characters. And thankfully the characters are developed just enough to where we care about each and every one in this Free Fire, but at the same time, not only do we want them to get out alive, but as an audience we're having trouble picking and choosing who to side with. Now I personally sided with Cillian Murphy's group that he came in with, but somebody else might see where Armie Hammer's group is coming from and side with them. I just think doing that in a film is absolutely brilliant because it's just going to make for a great conversation when you leave the theater. And as for standouts in this film, I would say Brie Larson, Cillian Murphy, and Armie Hammer really stood out to me, but I like them already as actors, so it's not really a surprise. Point is, each character in this movie is developed just enough to where we care about them, and we don't necessarily need to know everything about the character, but we need to know enough about them to care about them in this particular time and moment. And that's really showcased well, and usually I might say a film like this has a character problem, but it absolutely doesn't. And also we learn more about these characters as the fight goes on, which makes them even more interesting, and you're doing exposition in a really interesting way. Because you're having people fire at one another as they're talking, so we're learning more about a character as we're watching something exciting, and not just two characters sitting and talking. Once again, making this film incredibly creative. Even the soundtrack to this movie is really good. It has a lot of classic 1970s tunes like John Denver's This Old Guitar, which plays at arguably one of the most gruesome and best moments in the entire film, which I won't be giving away here. I'm trying to get you to watch it. I'm not going to say spoilers. Come on. There's a song on the soundtrack called The Phone Rings, and it's one of the best songs on the entire soundtrack for one of the best moments in this movie. And even though this movie is incredibly serious for the most part and really mature, it still takes the time to make a joke every now and then, and when humor is thrown in this film, it works. The film's actually really surprisingly funny. I would not have guessed that, but it actually fit really well with the tone of this movie. And it's always nice to laugh off something that might otherwise be horrific to watch. That being said, when I first watched this movie, I didn't necessarily love it as much as I love it right now. I thought the movie was good, I didn't think it was great, but after thinking about it more and more, I actually really like it, and it's probably one of my favorite films I've seen this year. And that being said, I did buy the movie because I had that much fun with it and enjoyed it that much, and I can't wait to watch it again. So that being said, if you haven't seen Free Fire, it's well worth your time and definitely worth checking out. I found it a really fun, enjoyable, intense film to watch. It might not be suitable for younger audiences, but at the same time, you kind of know what you're getting into. It's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino film mixed with a Martin Scorsese film, and it just makes something really fun. So that being said, have you seen Free Fire? Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. And as always, I'm FrameByFrame. Remember the name. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.